Next, we have a writer whose fiction has appeared in Clark's World, Electric Velocipede, and the year's best dark fantasy and horror 2013, among others, and whose nonfiction has appeared in or is forthcoming from Brevity, The Collagist, Diagram, and elsewhere. She reviews for American Book Review and serves as nonfiction editor at the new online literary magazine, The Account. She will soon be receiving her PhD from the University of Illinois at Chicago, and you can find her online at girlwonders.wordpress.com. Please welcome Brooke Wonders.
Thanks. It's great to be here. It's always such a delight to hear the essays and the haikus and the wonderful people you bring in. We're just over here laughing hysterically. I should also forewarn, I just completed a 14-hour drive from New York State, so I will try not to read like I just completed a 14-hour drive from New York State. And I should also say, I was going to pick up books, because I do have books to sell, both the one that I mentioned, the year's best dark fantasy and horror, and then also a new book, The Wreckage of Reason 2, which is a collection of experimental women writers. I have a story in both of those books, two different stories. But I didn't have time to pick up the books because we were frantically trying to get here offline. So apologies, but they're available on the internet, which is full of things. So yes, thank you very much to Eden and Andrew for inviting me to read tonight. So I have two very short things. The first one is called "And They Shall Never Sever," which is funny because it's actually a line from a Sinead O'Connor song. The 90s are back. She sits in a corner of the junior high lunchroom, a piece of red string looped around her fingers in a catch cradle. The other kids ignore her, but Ben's the new kid and doesn't know any better. Besides, he likes the chemtrail streak of orange in her hair, like a warning. "Put your hand through the middle," she says, and as he does, she drops the threads and pulls, trapping his wrist. "Now I've caught you, and you're mine forever." She smiles shyly at him, kisses his cheek. "Melly and Ben sitting in a tree," a girl in a jean jacket sings songs. The catcall eddies around the lunchroom, the sound of Ben's cachet plummeting, but he doesn't care, because now he knows her name. He turns to tell Melly the jean jacket girl's a loser, not worth her time, but she's already gone, escaping the lunchroom with her face turned away from him, leaving him to imagine how her spun silk lips would feel against his. Every day, from then on, damn the KISSING. Come lunchtime, he asks her to teach him a new figure. 2 candles, the manger, flying carpet. At the end of every lesson, she gives him a quick peck and flees. Until the day, he puts his hand through the center of her catch cradle, and it disappears. Within the diamond-shaped hole, reality ripples, involuted. They peer into the unnerving distortion surrounding Ben's wrist. "Where'd your hand go?" she asks. He keeps his voice chipper. "I don't know, maybe let's start over." So she drops the loops, collapsing the diamond to begin again, and he jerks back, arm ending at the wrist. No blood, just space where skin, bone, and fingertips should be. He backs away from her in horror, and she runs from his gaze, leaving him alone with a cauterized stump. A few days later, he's back at school, mad at her, and also desperately hoping she'll explain why she hurt him after all those Quicksilver kisses. As he shuffles between classes, he spots other kids with missing limbs, boys who knocked over her lunchbox, girls who put gum in her hair. At lunch, he plops down on the bench next to her, ignoring the hush that winds around them. No one catcalls. No one sings. How do you do it? I told them I'd give them each $50 if they went behind the school and played cat's cradle with me. Said they were chicken if they didn't. That's sick. They said nasty things behind your back. They deserved it. She gestures toward his stump. But you didn't. She stares at her lap, wrists folded over clasped hands like a mantis, and he notices that 2 of her fingers stop at the knuckle. I slipped up, the string got twisted, but it gave me an idea of how to fix this. It'll take 2. Her pleading eyes weave a net that constricts around him. Come over to my place after school? He doesn't answer. She scoots closer to him, their shoulders almost touching. Ben, I'm so sorry. It's the first time she said his name, and he's distracted by the way her lips shape each careful consonant. He calls home to say he's spending the afternoon with a friend. Together they build a rope of tied-together sheets, toss it over a crossbeam, like a Rapunzel tale or a suicide. She twines the red string between his fingers. The other end she loops awkwardly around his stump. Before he can react, she's grabbed hold of the sheets, dropped into the string-frame space between his hands, and she's gone. He keeps perfectly still for hours, until the blood leaves his wrists, and he blinks back tears, waiting, numb and anxious, fearing the moment when the sheet rope snaps back toward the ceiling, their connection severed. At last, delicate fingers curl around the edge of twine, and she pulls herself up and over. Slung across her back, a sheet-wrapped bundle. She unfurls a pile of limbs, rummages through parts, hands mostly, a few fingers, 2 arms. This one is yours. She holds out his hand, still twitching as if cut off only yesterday. He feels the uncanny sensation of his fingers held in hers. Thanks, he says. He bangs his long-since sealed stump against the hand's wrist. It's not working. Let me try, she says, wrapping thread around his fingers, and then her own. 2 people intertwine to make one catch cradle. He thrusts his stump into the cradle's center, and she fits his hand back into its socket. He uses his reattached fingers to stroke her cheek, and she doesn't run away. The next day they go around knocking on doors. Is Anne there? Yes, I'd like to give her a hand. Yes, it's the one she lost. The one I took. I apologize. Is that your boyfriend? One girl scoffs, cracking each knuckle to make sure all are firmly attached. Melly pinks, then nods, and Ben's so happy he'd give her both arms and a leg too. Once everything's been reconnected, they go back to her parents' place and sit on her porch swing, red string coiled between them. What should we do with it? I brought a lighter, he says. No, she says, snatching the thread away. He's confused. He'd been sure she'd want to destroy it. I want you to see inside. Her fingers encircle his wrists. You want me to? She nods, and quick as a spindle spun, she's wound the thread in a crisscross that spiderwebs the swing in red, an undulating gyre open at its center. She extends her hand to him. Silence spools out between them as he weighs his options. Then he grabs her hand tight. As he does, she sparks the lighter, bends down, and touches flame to the farthest end of string. Together, they dive into the heart of the pattern. Behind them, the red thread lights up like dynamite fuse, curling in on itself, back to the nothing space from whence it came. How many of you are writers? Be honest. All right, this one's for you. I have for you today some writing advice. When a story skitters across your floor, catch it in a jam jar. If your story is not the skittering kind, you may need something larger. A mosquito net, perhaps, or a parcel box, or even a sheet thrown over to confuse it. Whichever you choose, make sure to poke air holes in to avoid asphyxiation. Sometimes you will net a fighter. It will puff itself up, turn red, unsheath its claws, tentacles, or other appendages. Your story will fling itself against glass walls until you're afraid it will hurt itself. Do not release it. It will only learn you are capable of destruction. When you are ready, open the jam jar and stick your head in, then your shoulders, then your torso. This may involve concision. Grab hold of the story between your teeth and pry it loose. If it refuses to come easily, back out slowly, make no sudden movements. Startled stories have been known to maul their creators. Rock its container until it is lulled to sleep. Then tip the story gently into the palms of your hands. Leave no holes between your fingers whereby it might escape. Find your story's mouth. There may be more than one. If so, select the largest. And cover it with your own. Fill your story's lungs with air. It may struggle at first. Grasp the story tightly with both hands. Stories are protean creatures. They will writhe beneath your fingers. They will limb their flesh with keening mouths, all the better with which to bite you. Don't let go. Your story will begin to inflate, increasing in size. At this point, you will want to have a firm grasp on its flailing limbs and its capacity for cleverness. Don't be afraid to force your expanding story back into its original container. It will resist. They always resist. Take your story's lips between your fingertips and tug. Mold them like wax. Tie its lips into a constrictor knot, as a Boy Scout or businessman might do. Tell your story, a fireside horror tale. Teach it who's boss. This will shut your story up for a bit until it remembers it has many other mouths. At this point, it is likely to shake you off and begin to circle the room, sniffing around for treats, its mouth knotted in reproach. Crouch down. Hold out your hand, which should contain a treat. Keep these handy. A juicy plot point will do. A large explosion. Perhaps a dragon. If it's a good story, it will come to you. It may snuffle at your fingertips, might even let you stroke its closed eyelids. At this point, you can be friends. Now cut it up into bits. Ignore its weeping, the gnashing of its 1,000 tiny teeth. Turn your back, so it can have some privacy while it pulls itself together again. Then let it fly out your skylight. Cut it free if it's become tangled in mosquito netting, wrap its parcel box in brown paper, and overnight it to Schenectady. If you are very, very lucky, you will never see that story again. Keep a box, glass jar, or notebook handy beneath your bed, under the sink, inside the medicine cabinet. Remain in a state of heightened watchfulness. You never know when another will appear. Like ants and natural disasters. There's always more where that one came from. Thank you.